Please.
We were talking about Newton and the occult, and we also heard about mother and how she was
Yeah.
trained in occult science at age 14 or something. How did that help her in her spiritual journey and realization?
So, what does occult mean? Occult means hidden. All that it means is there is a world of our senses, and there are things we can handle purely by the sensory apparatus and the outer mind. For instance, if I have to move this glass from here to there, so I'll stretch my hand, pick up the glass. So, this is evident. Now, can I move the glass without touching? Are there ways and means, forces, powers which can operate without hands and feet? So, that whole domain of energies, powers, forces is called occult. Now, the difference between occult and spiritual is I may learn all these inner processes. I'll come to it a little more in detail, but just to give a background. But yet, I may not realize the one divine. To realize the one divine and through the divine, the oneness is the object of spiritual seeking. So, occultism is like a deeper science, and spirituality is about realizing the divine. Now, what is the difference? If you realize the divine, then automatically all the powers, energies which belong to this world, which are yet not seen, they are already there. Therefore, those who realize the divine, automatically they have something of the occult in them. But they don't care much about it because that's not their objective. But those who seek after the occult may not necessarily be great spiritual people. I'll give you an example. Today, we are talking about teleportation. We are talking about 3D printed rocket has gone into space. By the way, India, there's something so wonderful. First 3D printed rocket, satellite has gone into space. So, rocket. So, now, thing is, it looks like magic. When you press the or you clap and the light comes up, it's magic. Now we know the process. But if 30 years back somebody say, "Are, what is this? You can clap and light will come." You say, "Don't talk nonsense." Now what happened? We observed there is an unseen link between the clap and the switch. What is that unseen link? Sound which is traveling. If we learned how to harness this sound from the receiver, between the receiver and the transmitter, we have created a whole new world of discovery. Entire internet is based on that. So, science advances from the gross to the subtle through the occult worlds. It doesn't use the word occult because it has discovered. It doesn't use it. It says science has discovered it. But it is like occult because if you look at it, tomorrow we may even discover ways and means that now we have drones which are flying without, pilots. So there is a description in Viman Shastra of aircrafts which fly without pilots. If somebody read before the drones came into existence, would say, how could they do it? It's impossible. But because they had learned this, they use the word occult. They use the word occult simply to distinguish between the ordinary science and something which is much deeper. Like today, we may not use the word occult, we use the word quantum mechanics. Now, quantum science is very different. Quantum science, all your laws on the gross world are reversed as it were. It's a different set of laws at times as if there is no law, and yet you have to discover the principle. So, basically, science has already entered the occult. But this is only occult with the material world. For example, as I said, that you can do magic with physical objects. What about the occult impact of thoughts and feelings? So we have not even tried to enter into that. Can my thoughts affect others? Can my feelings influence somebody? Today I had a very interesting instance. I asked a little boy to write in one word what his experience of Matrimandir is. So let's see whether the boy recognizes or not. Okay. So I had a term in my head going on. I didn't try to transmit. I just had a term in my head. And he took the paper and pen, wrote exactly that. Excellent. Now, we can pass it as coincidence, but if we study it carefully, we will see that there is a possibility of thought being transmitted to others, we receiving others' thoughts. The phenomena of telepathy is a kind of quasi occult. Now, if we master it, normally it happens automatically. We don't know how it happens. We say, Arey, I was thinking of the same thing. Hasn't it happened so many times? We just take it as coincidence or we are just happy at it. But imagine somebody masters the thought, knows how to direct it consciously, with a will behind it, what he can do. Now we understand we are entering into domains of occult healing. How does a mantra heal? People think that they just, they will suddenly sit together and recite a mantra, Mahamrityunjay mantra, and the dead will come alive. It doesn't happen like that. You have to master the thought, the will, the mantra. You must be that mantra siddha. When you simply say once, Ma, that should bring all the Divine Mother's presence immediately in the environment. If that has been done, then with that power, when you look at somebody and simply you feel the spontaneous urge, not as a means of showing off, simply you feel, Ma, may he be healed. It has the effect. So basically, occult also implies the use of thought, feelings, will, impulsion in a very powerful way. We use it normally in a very chaotic way. Very often, unwittingly, we do a lot of harm by negative thoughts. Are ye to bachega nahi, ye to mar jayega. But there is an occult communication that goes on. I have seen a patient who was under this kind of coma, half-hearted coma, means he was comatose. And some of us were taking rounds, and the cardiologist suddenly remarked, I don't think he's going to live long. And suddenly this man came out of his coma, said, Doctor Sahab, aisa mat boliye, and he collapsed again. I can never forget this lesson of my life during internship. He died after 2 days. That's a different story altogether. Of course, he was in that state. But how our prognostications have an effect upon people. So we need to understand that mastery of thought, mastery of feeling. The mother had developed it to what extent? Showing thereby what are the possibilities that domains of knowledge which wait for us. So he describes this story of when one of her teachers, Madame Theon, when she had to wear the chappals, she would not walk to the chappals would come to her. The mother had learned this art that if you are hungry, you have a flower, you put it on your navel area and the flower dries off, but you get that energy and get life. And the mother would do something even more difficult, the reverse. The reverse is when somebody took a murjhaya hua flower, a flower which had withered off, on her birthday, and this lady is thinking, Arey, I wish I had a better flower. Then she said, doesn't matter, I am like this withered flower, I'll give it to mother. As I am giving it to her. So she went with this attitude and told mother, this is my state, like a withered flower, I am handing over to you. Mother kept smiling and talking while stroking the flower till it began to bloom and bloomed completely. Is it not giving life to a dead? With Shri Aurobindo, there was a scorpion which had bit a cat. And the mother just took the cat and went to Shri Aurobindo and said she must be saved. Because there was a work going on, occult work on that cat. Normally they would not do these miracles of making people come alive. But the possibility is there. The yogi does not interfere with occult powers into the workings of the world. If he does that, there will be chaos. There is a reason why things happen the way they happen. But then he kept looking at the cat. 20 minutes, he then stressed, got up, jumped and went away. So there are powers within which we can be unleashed through the process of yoga, or generally in Tantra, occult comes in a big way, or even practice of occultism without yoga. So occult has both sides. There is a dark occult which is called as black magic, where one uses these forces of the dark worlds for doing harm. Voodoo, I don't know whether you've heard or not. Heard about voodoo? I have seen 2 cases of voodoo. Actually seen. You just couldn't explain and the child is withering away. It's such a sad thing. You're seeing in front of your eyes. And then, of course, invoke the Divine Mother, and eventually Mother's grace worked. And then we came to know, because something of the child was with some, this magic is done in strange ways. Some contact has to be made, like this, we spoke about the clap and the light. So, all that the person requires to do voodoo is some part of you, like either the hair. That's why in India, all this where occult was known very, very much. So, some part, body part. So, hair, that becomes a very powerful means, but hairs are also inconscient. But other way is cloth or something which the person is wearing. And one can use it to, because it contains something of your imprint. There is an imprint, there is a transaction of energy which has taken place. That's why people, of yogis' clothes giving to someone and it has an impact. Their jhuta khana. I've had this experience with Champak Lalji. So when they drink and from that they give and you take. So there is an interchange. So occultism is all about the interchange, the inner commerce that is taking place in the world, but without our knowing it. There is a dark interchange, like when we go to a market, we have gone without the purse and we have just gone just casually. Market घूम के आते हैं, घूमने के जगह नहीं है. But we just go to the market and stall and suddenly you say, let me buy this, let me buy that. And because people understand unwittingly this occult process or somewhere they get it. So now you have Amazon and the GPay, making it easier. कुछ भी नहीं करना है. So now the world of desire has come to your doorsteps instead of you going there. But this is a kind of rudimentary occult where when we go to a market where desires are circulating, something takes grip of us and we are compelled to do things which ordinarily we would not. Haven't it happened so many times? I bought it. I didn't plan to buy it, but I bought it. Nothing wrong about it. I'm just saying how occult works. Similarly, you go to certain places where there are certain energies and they may, particularly where accident sites, as a psychiatrist, I met people trace their first panic attack to an accident site where they felt some kind of fear. And then it got into the system and would repeat itself. So it's a vast world. Obviously, if I enter whole week, there can be a workshop on that. But that's what occult is about. But having mastered all these forces and energies, still you may not be spiritual. And there we have 2 examples. Hiranyakashipu had mastered all the occult forces. But he was not spiritual. Prahlad is spiritual. Therefore, nothing can harm him. Ravan has mastered all the forces of the occult world, including the forces that determine your destiny, which is Rahu, Ketu, Mangal, Shani, God knows, all the subtle forces that determine our destiny. And yet, he is a tremendously egoistic person. He can't cross a little blade of grass that Mata Sita places before him. He says, this you cross, then I'll know you are bragging too much. Because he has said, I have all these forces. He was right. But where occult stops, where all magic, black and white, stops, just as there is a black magic, there is white magic, gods, invocation of gods. But where even the gods stop, the titans stop, there the spiritual consciousness, the play of the one divine who dwells in every heart and every creature, that begins. So obviously that is a higher goal. Occultism cannot set our soul free. It can give us a lot of powers. Mother had developed all these powers to an extent she could make a passage in the vital world for people who die, because she knew that Shraddh and all ceremony people have forgotten and very difficult. Where are the real Pandits? Now we only have pot bellies and tikka on the forehead. So where are those who know the occult? So she created a passage and she says, whoever has even a little faith can enter into this passage and go safely. Her occultism had gone to totally another level, which is truly, I have read almost practically almost every possible book under the sun, in principle of all this literature. But her magic is to what extent? Unbelievable, unimaginable. And as I said, if I talk about it, it'll be a whole thing in itself. And yet, she had to do it because her work is transformation. So she must know all the forces, command all the forces. And yet the spiritual is something still greater. And that she had mastered both. So we have that famous story with which this question I can stop. I can go on, this vast subject. That Dilip Kumar Roy went to ask a yogi for initiation because he had gone to Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo said, your seeking is still mental. You are too much into the mind. So he didn't initiate him. He didn't say, okay, take up the yoga. So he went in search of another yogi to give him yoga. So somebody took him to a tantric siddha yogi. And this yogi asked him, sit quietly near me. He said, I don't know how to become quiet. He said, don't worry, you sit. And slowly his mind became quiet. Suddenly the yogi jumps up and says, why have you come to me? He said, to take initiation. You are already initiated. Who has initiated me? I don't know. He said, Sri Aurobindo. He said, how do you know? He said, he came and told me. So he asked him, he said, but he never told me. He said, that is because, do you have a hernia? He says, yes. He says, because you have to get it operated. This hernia, the pressure that you will feel in his presence, you won't be able to bear it. And then in the parting, he told him something very interesting. He says, you know, your guru, he is sitting on the mountain of siddhis. And you have come asking initiation from me? What a fool you are. That's how he sent him away. So the greatest masters don't talk about all these siddhis. They do where things have to be done. Somebody saw thousands of cases, Nirodha recounts. Somebody comes in pain. Oh, I have a pain, I have a pain. And Sri Aurobindo would just look and nobody sees what is happening. And the mother says a subtle arm comes, there's a black spot dancing there, picks up and throws it aside far away. And the person says, oh, pain is gone, I'm fine. It doesn't mean that every time life would be like a miracle, because there are many conditions. Conditions apply in occult world. You can't say, oh, with my clap it can switch on, but then your wiring may not be working well, so you may clap to your... or there may be no bulb there which is open. So there are many conditions apply in the occult world. There is only one thing which is unconditional, and that is the supramental, the supreme divine. But there to be receptive to that force, it's unconditional but also absolute. So absolute force, if we are not ready, it can smash. So there is a preparation which is different from conditions. We can prepare ourselves and then it can work the greatest miracle. Okay, so I don't know. It's a vast subject.
Two examples. One is Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad.
The other one is Ravan, I said. That Ravan has all the powers at his disposal. But what happens when Ram stands in front of Sita? Forget Ram. Ram to Ram hai. Sita. Ram ka naam leke patthar tair jate hain. And Mata Sita simply, it's a story which is recorded there. It's like the Ken Upanishad. And she simply says, you are saying so much about your power. You just cross this blade of grass and let me see. She keeps it there. The fellow is shaken to his wits. He gives his own reasons. Shrap hai, ye hai, wo hai. Hil gaya tha. Modern language mein. So that's the divine power.